Mom's husband falsely accused me to cut me out, only for years later Mom to discover he was cheating, forged her signatures to steal her house, and his new girlfriend found a notebook exposing his scams on women. Oh, where do I even begin with this mess? My own mother, the person who was supposed to be my rock, threw me out of her life because of a man who then systematically ruined her. And now, she's back, utterly broken, asking for my help. It all started about 5 years ago. My mom, she was 56, and she met this guy, Greg, who was 34, at her marketing firm. She's this sharp, executive assistant, and he walked in as the new marketing director. I remember her calling me, her voice practically vibrating with excitement, talking about this charming young man who'd asked her out for coffee. Honestly, at first, I was thrilled for her. My dad passed when I was 18, and she hadn't dated seriously since. To see her smiling, genuinely excited about someone again, it was a relief. But even then, a tiny alarm bell went off. Greg was only 5 years older than me, and the way he looked at her, it wasn't affectionate. It was calculating, like he was always assessing her, always knowing exactly what to say, how to act, to reel her in. And my mom, she was absolutely, completely smitten. She kept telling me she couldn't believe someone so young and attractive wanted to be with her, how he made her feel young again, how he was different. "I've finally found the one," she'd say, over and over. I wanted to be happy, I really did, but something felt deeply, profoundly wrong. It wasn't just the age gap, it was the speed of it all. Within months, she was talking about him like he was her soulmate. 3 months in, I finally met him, and I just didn't like him. He was polite, sure, but it felt like an act. Every fiber of my being screamed, fake. Still, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to be the bad guy. Then, just 8 months after they started dating, Mom called to announce they were getting married. Just like that. No long engagement, no planning, no second thoughts. I remember hesitating, trying so hard not to upset her. I gently suggested they slow down, maybe live together first, see how real life felt. And she snapped. "You just don't want me to be happy." That stung. It stung so bad. I backed off. I didn't want to ruin our relationship. A few weeks later, they had a small courthouse ceremony. I was the only family member there. After they got married, everything accelerated. Greg moved into my childhood home, the house my dad had left to her. I lived about an hour away, finishing my master's, and I'd visit whenever I could. But every time, Greg would make these little comments. "Always around, are we? Or don't you have your own life to live?" It was subtle, but the message was clear. I wasn't welcome. And my mom, she never defended me. She'd just laugh it off or change the subject. Then, about 6 months into their marriage, Mom called me about updating her will and estate planning. She said Greg thought it was the responsible thing to do. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I mean, people do that when they get married, right? So I didn't push back. The real turning point, the moment my world shattered, happened about a year into their marriage. I came over for the weekend to help Mom finally clean out some of Dad's old things from the garage, something she'd been avoiding for years. Greg was supposed to be on a business trip, so I thought it would just be us. But late that first night, he came home unexpectedly. Mom had gone to bed with a migraine, and I was watching TV. Greg came in, sat way too close to me on the couch, and started asking these weirdly personal questions about my dating life. It made my skin crawl. I shifted away, tried to keep it light, but the way he looked at me, it gave me chills. I excused myself and went to bed early, desperate to get away from him. The next morning, I woke up to screaming. Greg was in their bedroom, yelling at my mom, claiming I had come on to him the night before. He said I'd flirted, touched his leg, suggested we have some fun, while she was asleep. I was in complete shock. None of that had happened. But he was so convincing, so outraged, that my own mother actually believed him. I tried to defend myself, but he twisted every single word, making me look guilty. And my mom, my own mother, told me to pack my things and leave. She said she needed space to think. I couldn't believe it. I begged her to listen, to see through his lies, but she was completely under his spell. I left that day in tears, feeling like my entire world had just crumbled. For weeks, I called her, but she barely answered. And when she did, she was cold, distant. Greg had been feeding her lies, telling her I'd badmouthed her, that I had mental health issues, that I was delusional. I was heartbroken. My mom and I had always been so close, and now she saw me as a threat. For the next 2 years, our relationship was a ghost of what it was, an occasional birthday call, awkward holiday visits. I focused on my life, finished my degree, got a paralegal job at a law firm, tried to move on. I dated, but nothing serious. Mostly, I buried myself in work, trying desperately to forget how my mom had chosen that manipulative monster over me. Then, about 8 months ago, I got a phone call. It was from my mom. I never expected it. She was crying so hard it took minutes to understand what she was saying. Eventually, through the sobs, I pieced it together. Greg had been cheating on her. Not just once, but multiple affairs, including with a close friend from her work. She was devastated, completely blindsided, already talking about divorce. Hearing her so broken was hard. This was my mom, this strong, independent woman I'd known my whole life. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the complicated feelings washing over me. As much as I sympathized with her pain, there was this cold, undeniable hesitation. I didn't drop everything and rush to her side like I might have in the past. Maybe that was petty, but how could I forget what she'd done? How easily she'd believed his lies about me. How quickly she'd pushed me out of her life when I'd done nothing wrong. Now she wanted my support, but where had her support been when I needed it? As the divorce proceedings began, even more unsettling truths unraveled. It wasn't just emotional betrayal. Greg had systematically taken over nearly every aspect of her finances. He'd convinced her to put almost everything in his name or in joint accounts. The house, which she'd owned outright, had been refinanced and put in both their names. Her retirement savings, years of hard work, intertwined with his. Even cherished family heirlooms, things passed down for generations, reappraised and insured under his name. But the worst blow came when she realized how much legal control he'd gained. 2 years ago, he'd gotten her to sign estate planning documents that put all her assets into a trust, with him listed as the sole beneficiary and executor. She swore she hadn't understood what she was signing. Greg had framed it as a routine update, something married couples do to keep things simple. Now, it was horrifyingly clear. This had been his plan all along. She was staring down the terrifying possibility of losing everything. The house, her retirement, even her sentimental possessions. Her lawyer was fighting, but legally, the documents she'd signed were solid. And Greg? He wasn't backing down. Despite earning more than her, he was demanding alimony, threatening to force the sale of the house if she couldn't buy him out, which she absolutely couldn't. Then last week, she called me again. This time, it wasn't just an update. She was asking for something much bigger. She wanted to stay with me, just for a little while. Her voice was different. More than sad, she sounded utterly embarrassed. She kept apologizing, not just for Greg, but for how she'd treated me. She admitted that, deep down, she'd probably always known I would never have done what Greg accused me of. But at the time, she'd been so terrified of losing him, she'd convinced herself he had to be telling the truth. And Greg? He'd made it so easy to believe him. He'd slowly isolated her from her friends, making her feel like he was the only person she could truly rely on. Now she saw it for what it was, manipulation. Plain and simple. But it was too late to undo the damage, to her life and to our relationship. There was no simple answer. She was my mother. And despite everything, it hurt to see her like this, broken, ashamed, with no idea what her future looked like. But I couldn't forget the pain she'd caused me. She'd turned on me so easily, pushed me aside without hesitation. That kind of betrayal doesn't just disappear overnight. Beyond the emotional side, there were practical concerns. If she lost everything, what then? Could I afford to support her? My life was stable, but I wasn't in a position to take on someone else's financial burden indefinitely. And even if I could, did I want to? Could I trust that she wouldn't make the same mistakes again? For now, I told her she could stay temporarily while I sorted through my own feelings. But beyond that, I honestly didn't know. Was I being too cold? Was it wrong to hold on to this resentment when she was at rock bottom? Or was it fair to set boundaries given everything that had happened? I didn't have the answers. I just knew this situation felt impossible. ****, Mom moved into my spare bedroom a couple of days ago. It's been awkward, but not as bad as I feared. She's been incredibly careful, almost afraid of overstepping. It's clear she doesn't want to push me further away. We've had some honest conversations. She's apologized repeatedly for believing Greg over me. One night, she broke down, admitting she always knew, deep down, that I would never have done what Greg accused me of. She'd just been so terrified of being alone again that she convinced herself otherwise. She thought she'd finally found someone who truly wanted her, and that fear just overpowered her instincts. I can understand why she felt that way, even if the pain still lingers. Forgiveness isn't something I can offer just yet. Yesterday, I went with her to meet her divorce attorney. And the situation? It's even worse than she explained. The lawyer confirmed those estate documents she signed 2 years ago are legally binding. Even if she didn't grasp what she was signing, they're valid. The house is the biggest complication. It was hers alone from my dad. But a year into their marriage, they refinanced it together, putting both their names on it. That, plus shared assets and the significant debt Greg racked up on joint accounts, makes things incredibly complex. The lawyer outlined some strategies, arguing undue influence from Greg, especially if we can show he isolated her. Negotiating a settlement, even if it means losing the house. And investigating Greg's finances for misconduct. After a lot of soul-searching, I've decided to support Mom, but with very clear boundaries. I told her she's welcome to stay for 3 months while she figures out her next steps. But beyond that, I can't offer financial support. I'll provide a safe place and help with groceries, but I won't take on her financial burdens. I also insisted she start seeing a therapist to work through everything that happened and understand why she was so vulnerable to his manipulation. To my immense relief, she agreed to both without argument. Reading everyone's comments, one thing became crystal clear: Greg's behavior fits a pattern. A predatory pattern targeting vulnerable women. Mom admitted that when they first met, she'd just received a small inheritance from her late aunt, about $50,000. Early in their relationship, she'd casually mentioned it. Looking back, that's when his interest in her seemed to skyrocket. She also recalled how he constantly pushed her to upgrade or sell family heirlooms, viewing them purely as cash, not sentimental items. I'm still working through my feelings. The hurt and frustration towards Mom are still there, but my anger towards Greg just keeps growing. Mom made poor choices, yes, but Greg deliberately and systematically exploited her weaknesses for his own gain. It's hard to process how calculated and truly manipulative his actions were. I'm focusing on helping Mom organize all the financial records for the lawyer and trying to protect my own mental health through all of this. It's a lot, but one step at a time. The past few days? Overwhelming. New developments that could actually change everything. Mom's lawyer called with some potentially game-changing information. During discovery, they found evidence suggesting Greg may have forged Mom's signature on at least 2 significant financial documents. One was related to a home equity line of credit, the other transferring her personal investment account into a joint one. What makes it even more suspicious? The signatures don't match Mom's usual handwriting, and the dates align with the time she was out of town visiting her sister. The lawyer thinks this could be a major break, strengthening Mom's legal position, maybe even leading to criminal charges for fraud against Greg. They're bringing in a handwriting expert, and they filed an emergency motion to freeze all assets while the investigation unfolds. For the first time in months, Mom actually feels hopeful that she might have a fighting chance. Then, another unexpected twist. Greg's current girlfriend reached out to Mom through Facebook. She's only 24, an intern at his firm. She started dating him about 6 months ago, believing he was already separated from Mom. She recently moved in with him and discovered some seriously unsettling things. Among them, a notebook where Greg appeared to be tracking Mom's schedule and financial details. Even more disturbing, this notebook contained a list of other potential targets. Women he'd identified as having assets he could exploit. The girlfriend, clearly spooked, started secretly photographing the documents and offered to share them with Mom. She even said she'd testify if needed. Processing this new information has been difficult. If everything she claims is true, Greg isn't just a manipulative opportunist. He's a calculated predator, with a system for identifying and exploiting vulnerable women. The lawyer is being cautious, verifying the authenticity of these documents. But if they're legitimate, this could be crucial evidence against Greg. On a more personal note, living with Mom has slowly become more comfortable. We're settling into a routine, and she seems to be regaining some of the confidence Greg stripped away. She's already attended 2 therapy sessions and says they've been helpful. She's even reconnected with old friends she lost touch with during her marriage, which has been really good for her. One evening, after a glass of wine, Mom confided something heartbreaking. She admitted that on the night Greg accused me of making a move on him, she hadn't actually believed him right away. Her first instinct was that he was lying, but he threatened to leave her if she took my side. He told her if she doubted him, it meant she didn't truly love or trust him. Knowing she'd already lost my dad and struggled with abandonment issues, Greg manipulated that fear, making her believe I was the real threat to her happiness, not him. Now, looking back, she's so ashamed of how easily he controlled her emotions and turned her against her own daughter. I can see the shame she feels about betraying me might be even worse than the financial ruin he left her in. I'm still keeping my boundaries, but I can feel myself softening. She's my mom, and even though she made a massive mistake, it's clear she was preyed upon by someone who knew exactly how to exploit her weaknesses. The road ahead is still uncertain. The legal battle could drag on for months, maybe years, and there's no guarantee she'll recover everything. But for the first time, there's a real possibility that Greg won't walk away unscathed. And that alone is a small victory. I'm still in complete shock as I write this. It doesn't even feel real yet. Just yesterday, Greg was actually arrested. Arrested. Handcuffed, read his rights, taken into police custody right there at my mom's workplace. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. This all started moving really fast after Mom's lawyer filed that emergency motion to freeze her accounts. They'd uncovered serious red flags, suspected forgeries, weird signatures, inconsistencies on documents Greg had supposedly helped her with. It was enough for the court to put an immediate hold on several accounts. I guess Greg found out somehow, and that's when everything completely unraveled. According to Mom's lawyer, Greg totally freaked out. Full-on panic mode. He apparently tried to liquidate some of the accounts, pulling out huge sums of money and attempting to wire it to offshore banks. The banks, thankfully, flagged it instantly. Fraud alerts were triggered, transactions blocked, and one bank even contacted the authorities directly. That move alone put him on law enforcement's radar. But that wasn't enough for him. Apparently, when the transfers didn't go through, Greg showed up at Mom's job, unannounced, during office hours. He made a huge scene, yelling, demanding to speak with her, accusing her of betrayal. It scared the hell out of her co-workers. Security had to step in, and when they couldn't calm him down, they called the police. He was arrested on the spot for harassment and disturbing the peace. But here's the craziest part. When they processed him at the station, they discovered there was already a warrant out for his arrest from a neighboring state. Turns out, Greg had pulled a similar scheme on an ex-girlfriend a few years ago, before he ever even met my mom. That case had gone cold because he vanished, but the warrant was still active. After the arrest, the police got a search warrant for his apartment. And what they found, honestly, it chilled me to the bone. His entire place was basically a con artist headquarters. They found detailed files on at least 5 women. 5 who all fit a similar profile. Older, financially comfortable or well-off, often divorced or widowed, and living somewhat independently. He had notes on their assets, timelines of their relationships, even comments about how to manipulate each one based on their insecurities. It was methodical, disturbing, and clearly a pattern. Included in what they seized was that infamous notebook his current girlfriend had mentioned, the one he always carried but never let her read. It turns out it was filled with scripts, notes, and even copied financial documents from his victims. One part that really hit me hard was a script he wrote out for confronting the families of his victims, adult kids, siblings, close friends who questioned his involvement. And I swear to you, some of the phrases in there were word for word the things he said to my mom about me when he convinced her to cut me off. He actually wrote out manipulative speeches. I can't even begin to describe the mix of rage and sadness I felt reading that. Mom's lawyer says this discovery changes everything. Now that there's clear evidence of fraud, coercion, and a repeated pattern of financial manipulation, she's a lot more confident they can reverse most, if not all, of the transactions Greg pressured Mom into. That includes her signing over estate documents, changing beneficiaries, and even some account access changes he snuck into her paperwork. The DA's office is moving forward with serious charges, multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and financial elder abuse. And even though my mom isn't elderly by legal standards, The law in our state has an expanded definition that covers cases like this, where there's a significant age difference and a pattern of financial grooming and control. Greg's current girlfriend has also been cooperating fully. She's handed over texts and messages where Greg bragged about securing his future, saying things like, "Once I get her to sign the trust, I'm set for life." She had no idea he was using her as a backup target. I can't imagine how betrayed she must feel, finding out the man she was dating was not only a fraud, but someone who might have tried to scam her, too. As for my mom and me, this whole thing, as awful as it has been, has actually brought us closer. We're both seeing things clearer now. I spent so long being angry at her, feeling utterly betrayed, wondering how she could choose this man over me. But seeing how calculated Greg was, how skilled he was at isolating her, and making her doubt the people who loved her most, I understand it better now. It doesn't excuse what happened, but it helps explain it. My mom wasn't just blindly choosing him. She was being groomed, manipulated, and lied to by someone who had done this before, someone who knew exactly how to break her down. She's been going to therapy, working through a lot of the guilt and shame she feels for letting him in. She told me that one of the hardest things has been realizing how many red flags she ignored, how many people tried to warn her, and how deep in denial she had to be to believe Greg over them. But she's doing the work now. She's acknowledging it all, and that means something. She's also decided that once all the legal stuff is over, she wants to sell the house. She said it just doesn't feel like home anymore. Too many bad memories. She wants a fresh start in a smaller place, somewhere closer to me. I told her I'm open to that, but I also want to keep healthy boundaries between us, especially after everything that happened. We're rebuilding, but it'll take time. I've started seeing a therapist, too. It turns out that being disowned and kicked out of your childhood home on the word of a manipulative liar really messes with your head. I've been working through a lot. Anger, hurt, trust issues, all of it. But I'm getting better. I'm not at full forgiveness yet, but I'm inching towards it slowly. I know now that Mom wasn't acting out of cruelty. She was under the control of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. That context helps. It doesn't erase the pain, but it helps me process it. Financially, things are still messy. A lot of Mom's assets are frozen or under investigation, and it'll probably be months before we know what she'll recover, if anything. But her lawyer says Greg's criminal charges are actually good for her civil case. It proves intent and shows that she was targeted, which strengthens her claim that the documents were signed under duress or manipulation. A few of her friends even started a GoFundMe to help with legal costs, and people have been incredibly generous. That part has been really touching, watching her community rally around her like that. All in all, I'm cautiously optimistic. This has been one of the most painful, bizarre, emotionally exhausting things I've ever gone through, but there's light at the end of the tunnel now. Mom's learning to stand up for herself again. I'm learning how to forgive and rebuild trust. We've both learned some very hard lessons. Her about protecting her independence and not letting someone isolate her from her support system. And me about the importance of empathy, even when you're hurt. We're not all the way healed. Honestly, we're still somewhere in the middle of this mess, but we're getting there. And I believe we'll be okay. Thank you again to everyone who's been following this saga, offering support, advice, and encouragement. Your comments help me stay grounded through one of the hardest chapters of my life. I'll update again when there's more news, but for now, I'm just breathing a little easier. Finally,